Hi, I'm Matthew Holt, and we're bringing you now a really interesting panel. The panel's topic is, how does new era healthcare technology media incite new era health activism? Which I think basically means we can talk about anything we like. Anyway, so I'm Matthew Holt. As you can tell from my panel behind me, I'm the publisher editor of the Healthcare blog, which is one of the oldest blogs in healthcare. I used to run the Health 2.0 conference, and I spend a lot of time hanging out both with digital health startups and with patient organizations. I'm actually on the board of the Society for Participatory Medicine, which is a bunch of grumpy patients trying to improve the patient relationship. And I have with me two wonderful panelists. I'm going to have a great fun with them. One is a really good friend of mine, Grace Vinton, who is the, I forget your title, Grace, but it was something like the senior something very important person at Amadella Communications, been working in PR. She's also the host of High Tea with Grace, which is just a wonderful podcast. And Christophe Jauquet, who I hope I didn't butcher your name there, Christophe, who is started his career way back when working for Pfizer, the pharma company, but the last decade or so has been sort of an independent consultant on innovation, and particularly around the topic that he lectures about frequently, which is Healthusiasm. And we're going to find out what that is and how that relates to health activism and health technology. So with that, we're going to sort of dive in and talk about all the different things that have been going on in the world of health and health tech and how that's emerged. So I'm going to put the first question to you, Christophe, and then we'll go to Grace, but we should just have a long conversation here. So how has health activism or healthusiasm, and I want you to tell me what that you define that as, how has that emerged? How has that changed and emerged with the emergence of social media and the way people, the changes that we've seen the last decade or two in how people access healthcare information?
Yeah, I love that question. And indeed, I think it might be good just to start with what do we mean with healthusiasm? What do we mean with health activism? Because probably there might be some overlap. There might be some small differences left and right. I think when I speak about healthusiasm, I speak about a societal trend that we've been seeing, for the past 25, 40 years even, but which actually has been around for 4,000, maybe 5,000 years. That is, people are actively engaged in their own health. That's what healthusiasm is all about. It's the aspiration to become healthy and happy, let's say. And when I say it's been around for 4,000 or 5,000 years, I mean, if you think about it, people used to bring offers to gods just to be healthy or just to be happy. I mean, even a couple of hundred years ago, they were still praying to the gods to be healthy, right? And that is what healthusiasm is really all about. It's the shift in society that we see today. A shift that has, a trend that has always been around, but the change now is that people have more tools, have more information, have more technology at their disposal to actually have an impact themselves. So they don't rely on the gods only anymore, let's put it that way. It's really the power that they have to have a proper impact. And the result of that is that, and that is my statement basically, is that and per se, every business is becoming a health business, because everyone is looking to other types of businesses, whether it's a supermarket, whether it's your car manufacturer, a home builder. You are looking to what can impact my own health and happiness. So healthusiasm is not only the trend where people are more actively involved with their health and happiness, it's also the fact that different types of businesses today are moving into this space and trying to make their customers healthy and happy. So that to me is healthusiasm. I'm not quite sure, Grace, whether that sticks with your health activism.
Absolutely. I think it would help a little bit to have some of my background. I am a PR pro by day, where I help, strategize, amplify health innovation stories with clients in healthcare, health IT, pharma, life sciences. And then by night, I also do patient advocacy work for young mothers navigating healthcare after birth. And so patient advocacy is a huge part of my life. I had my own patient experience where I almost died in 2017, a year and a half of misdiagnosis after misdiagnosis, literally getting to a point where doctors said, we don't know what's wrong with you. You just need to go home and say goodbye to your family and live what you can out as happy as you can. And I get home and I say, that's not enough. And I kept fighting for my health. And I eventually was able to find my answer, which ended up being E. coli poisoning, which is one of the easiest discoverable and treatable illnesses possible. And so from that experience of kind of, being with social media through PR, and then becoming a patient advocacy and seeing the power of the patient experience and the diagnostic journey and the diagnostic story, I kind of see this health activism as people joining together through social media and through innovation, and really taking charge and being empowered as a patient. And it turning from a patient-centered healthcare system to a patient-led healthcare system where patients are self-triaging. They have more data access at their fingers than ever before. They have more access to wearables than ever before. And so I think you and I share in that, healthusiasm. There is healthusiasm because patients and care partners are having more access than ever before. Are there security concerns? Yes. Are there other concerns out there? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I think, health activism, healthusiasm really has to do with, using healthcare innovation and social media to, share personal experiences, raise awareness about diseases, and really advocate for better healthcare policies and more. So it's a slightly different take on it, but at the same time, I think we both have a very similar view in it being patient-led and it being, a good thing for the industry to have innovation really taking part in helping patients self-triage and take control of their own health.
Yeah, I would even go one step further in the sense that this activism you're talking about, it's even when people are not sick. It's even when they're healthy. This is what we see even more today, is that this activism, this desire, this aspiration, as I like to call it, to become healthy and happy, or to remain healthy and happy, if there is such thing, it's already when you're not sick. So it's not just, to me, it goes way beyond patient-led. It's like human-led. It's like, I always ask the question. I mean, I'm a professional keynote speaker. This is what I do in my daytime. And the first question I ask when I go on stage is like, who does not want to be healthy and happy? And so there's no hand raised in the audience. And so this is, to me, the how important health and happiness is. The single most important thing to all of us. And so indeed, if you say social media platforms, to come back to your question, Matthew, is that to what extent has it had an impact on health enthusiasm or health activism? I think ever since Dr. Google, or the let's say the democratization Dr. TikTok now, I mean, but the democratization of information, basically, through the internet, I think was the beginning. And I think, Matthew, you were very at the beginning of it. You saw it all happening very early on. I think that was really the beginning of what we call health activism and health enthusiasm. That's why I'm saying it's 25 years old, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can argue actually it's a little bit older than that, right? So the first sort of inklings of this, I think, were amongst, and I want to dig into this bit between patient and human and the distinction between the two, right?
I'd love to.
Because this kind of started with the Boston Women's Health Collective in the States, which is Our Bodies, Ourselves, that book, which was in the late 60s, early 70s. Then you had the patient activism of the AIDS movement in the 80s, and the breast cancer movement, the cancer movements. And these were talking about things that were really taboo. I mean, cancer, breast cancer, and then AIDS even more so, of course. And then around that time, right, the late 80s, early 90s, you start getting the first online activity. And I was studying this, as you said, it says more than 25 years ago. I actually did a report on this back in 92, 93 for the Institute for the Future about, what I then called telehealth. They didn't have the word for e-health yet, but or digital health as it is now. But a lot of the interesting stuff was about communities that were already forming online, from the earliest times, of patients connecting with each other. So it started there. Obviously, it migrated into specific different both for-profit and non-profit organizations, putting those patients together. And then, of course, when social media and Facebook and Google and others got really big, probably in the last 15 years, it sort of migrated there. Now, parentheses, there's a lot of problems with that issue, and Facebook has not been perhaps the greatest host for these groups, but there are a gazillion groups, used to be on Yahoo, and now they're on Facebook, of different types of people with different types of patient condition. I do want to poke you a bit, Christophe, and say I think everyone has the aspiration to be healthy and happy. I think the growth in discussion about mental health, which obviously has been both promoted, by people sharing stuff online about it, but also that's been caused by the amount of time we're spending online. You can argue that. That's a much more general thing. It impacts many people, but people who are like in Grace's condition, where they had a specific medical problem, or people with cancer, or whatever, some rare disease, have tended to get together, and they have been highly, highly committed to this. So I think I'd love to talk a bit about what has been the difference between somebody who wants their house to reflect healthy living, or how thinks the supermarket should provide healthier alternatives to food, which is great, compared to somebody who has a really significant disease and is impacted for their life. So let's start with that. Can we compare and contrast those two? And is it the same thing? Healthusiasm with them?
It is the same thing, and in my opinion, at least, in the sense that the way that I look at it, I mean, it's always been a discussion: is a patient a consumer? Is a consumer a patient? And it's been on for so many years. The thing is that they're both, right? One time we're a patient, one time we're a consumer. It really depends on the situation we're in. The thing is, while we used to, as a consumer, take the archetypical consumer lifestyle decisions, and a patient would take a very much, or hopefully is involved in some medical decision, what we see now is that regardless of the situation you're in, whether you're in a situation as a patient or whether you're in a situation as a consumer, there are decisions that you are taking that are related to your health. And it could be well-being decisions, it could be preventative decisions, it could be even medical decisions. I mean, we can have our DNA checked for some diseases. Obviously, it's the early stages, but this is where it is going. And to me, healthusiasm is the fact that, if we're talking about industries, the medical industry, the consumer industry, and the wellness industry in between, they're all coming closer. And making a distinction between a patient and a consumer, I don't do it anymore. They do have different needs. They find themselves in different situations, so they have specific needs. They're not the same, but their expectations of the solutions that they are getting are exactly the same, and the aspirations that they're having, meaning I want to, I want to feel togetherness. I want to belong to something. I want to have optimal energy. I want to look good. I want to, have less stress. All these elements are drivers to taking care of your health, whether or not you're sick. And so to me, those aspirations that I'm talking about, this is what Healthusiasm is all about. It's a driver that we all have to be healthy and happy. And obviously the needs might differ if you're in if you're having or struggling with cancer, or if you're just healthy and you want to live well. But the intrinsic aspiration that we have, like the togetherness, the belonging, the looking good, not having stress, is the same for all of us. The expectations that we have towards the different solutions that are offered in the healthcare system or through Amazon.com are exactly the same. And so that's why I don't make that distinction anymore.
So that's a strong argument.
Yeah, and I would say I don't agree with it at all. I mean, I do agree that obviously all of us have healthusiasm, but obviously the patient comes and the care partner comes from a place of trauma, and that needs to have trauma-informed care and decisions and offerings. But consumer may come from a place of trauma, but not healthcare, specific trauma. The diagnostic journey, especially in the rare disease and other chronic conditions, is tremendous, and the pressure and the toxicity that comes directly to patients, not just consumers, but patients and caregivers themselves, is tremendous. But I do agree with you that everybody has healthusiasm. Everyone wants to be well. It's just the journey to get to healthusiasm is different because of healthcare toxicity, lack of information to access to technology, lack of access to great information like medical journals or even your own data, reliability, and all the pressure in what people need is different for a healthcare consumer versus a healthcare patient and care partner. But I do think it's important to have a designation of all healthcare consumers and speak and because at the end of the day, we do want to have a great experience. We want it to feel like picking up our phone. We want it to feel like booking a ticket for an air flight. We don't want it to be pressured, but I do think having that healthcare trauma informed understanding, and seeing them as two different groups can be very helpful and useful.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that the needs might be different because it's a different situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to find a solution that answer to a specific need. That's right.
Yeah.
But the way that you build that solution, and this is something that we often forget in the healthcare system, because of the urgency, because of the trauma, we don't take into account the expectations of people. And I think this is where they don't differ anymore, patients and consumers. And I think this is something that is super important. And when we're talking about healthusiasm, is indeed the desire to be healthy. And if you're not healthy, your need might be different. But the way that you're looking for solutions to remain healthy or to become healthy will be the same. It needs to be fast. It needs to be convenient. It needs to be personal. It needs to be relevant. Those kind of things don't change whether you are heavily sick or feeling well, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I don't make the distinction. Indeed.
The only concern I have is, especially in healthcare innovation circles in particular, they kind of use we're all patients as a reason to not include patient and care partner insight in the innovation process, to not include them on panels, to not include them, and to not pay them for their time. Because is it really different? No, I don't know, because I also experience healthcare. We all experience healthcare, but there is a differentiation between people who are sick and have trauma from the healthcare world versus people who just experience healthcare as once a year I go to the doctor, or I have an Apple Watch or whatever. There's a differentiation.
It's a different need.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Needs are totally different. Yeah.
So let's poke on this a little bit, because what we've seen, right, is that now there is, as people age and as they go through life events, childbirth obviously is a huge one, but also people getting older, acquiring a rare disease, having a diagnosis that can't be fixed, whatever it is, right? People come into the system. But we know that relatively small number of people in any society, a relatively small number of people are relatively sick and they use more healthcare resources, right, than others. So you do have this divide to some extent. But as people go into more and more of that, and the ease of getting access to both, information, whether it's social media, online information, whatever it is, and monitoring and home testing, increases. We're now seeing in the last, I would say, the social media things we're going for 15 years, really in the last 5 years, and really only since the pandemic, have you seen big pushes, and now we're all familiar with testing ourselves at home for something more than pregnancy, right? Even if it's COVID. But we all know there's a whole raft of potential other testing coming down the line. In fact, I do my pre-colonoscopy testing at home, fit test for colon cancer, scooping the poop. There are going more of these tests, and more coming down the line. More and more of them going to be built into the fabric of what we do. You mentioned the Apple Watch, which for now can only do so much, but soon we'll be doing blood glucose, things like that. We'll be doing blood glucose and blood pressure and what have you, making that much easier to obtain. As that comes along, I want you to forecast, both of you, a little bit what you think that means for the kind of health activism or healthusiasm for individuals. What kind of things do you think there'll be could be possible? And more importantly, how many people will sort of jump the divide and go from being like the fat guy in his late 50s like me, who doesn't really care about his health, but probably should pay attention, to actually sort of focusing on it as a daily piece of their activity, the way that maybe a triathlete does now. So what's how big is this sort of mass movement going to become? I want you both to speculate a bit about that, to put everyone in the bucket that Christophe says they're in, which is a consumer who cares about their health.
Well, I think, this new era of technology and, care at home, testing at home, research at home, and care as, a research model, all of these options allow us for better informed self-triage like never before. If I want to do telehealth, I'm going to do it. If I want to do urgent care, I'm going to do it. If I want to do it from home, I want to do it. And, we all know patient leakage. We hear about patient leakage and people losing patients. That's a serious issue for healthcare providers working on 1% to 2% margins. So I will continue to constantly argue that this is a great new era of technology. The care at home, testing from home is fantastic. It really empowers the patient. I think health activism has a lot to do with the empowered patient. and that, we're entering into this new era of patient-led care, not just collaborative care, not just, it's patients and consumers taking the reins of their own care, making their own choices on where they want to get it back. And then having these, wearables and health monitoring apps, empower us to kind of monitor everything real time, track various health parameters, and have this constant feedback from bench to bedside to kind of improve proactive engagement in your own care. So I'm just saying all of this to kind of to answer, I think it's a great thing in terms of, healthcare transitioning from just go to the hospital when you're sick to it's a part of my everyday thought and life. And I have control over who I choose to get care from when, because I have the data in my own hands to be able to say and see how healthy I'm being and not being. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my initial thought to that. Christophe, what do you think about that?
Well, I have a very particular view on it, and it's a view that goes beyond the next 5 years. So I fully agree with what you said. I mean, there's a lot going on, and if you look at, there's about 50% of the people, 40 to 50, depending on the research that you're looking at, that are actively involved in their health. There's about 30, 35 that just don't give a bleep. The thing is, and it's something that really struck me during the COVID period, is that thanks to all these devices, if you look 5 to 10 years ahead, and if you look at what we've seen and what we've learned during COVID, is that we're entering, and this is actually one of my most popular keynotes right now, is that we're entering an era of what I call personal science.
Yeah.
The thing is that we won't be satisfied with an average study of even 20,000, 150,000 people where the average patient is so and so. We will do our own study. I mean, you can tell me that I need to sleep 8 hours, but I've been tracking my sleep for 5-6 years now, I guess, with multiple devices, and I know exactly how much I need to sleep. Let's say if you're looking at how running, and you don't even have to be a marathon runner, you just have to be like an occasional runner. The way that they deal with their health, the way that they look at their blood pressure, their HRV, their VO2 max, the type of shoes that they're buying, their hydration when they're running, the type of foods that they're eating before, during, after, whatsoever. I mean, this has become a personal science thing. And so people are, if we look at its future, I think that we are going more and more into this personal science era. And it will be quite a bit of a challenge for the healthcare industry, not only from a data and an information point of view, but also how to deal with patients. Because right now, and this is one of the most important trends that has become very clear ever since COVID, is that I always say to my clients, you need to take into account that your clients or your patients, they are confidently stupid. And when we talked about social media and the way that information is distributed, I mean, it's bite-sized, it's echo-chambered. They don't really get the hang of it. They really don't understand it, but they're confident, right? The thing is, with this personal science era, they will remain confident, but they won't remain stupid anymore. And so we are heading into an era 5 to 10 years plus, where this personal science things will reinforce the confidence that people have and will make them smarter. And this will be, to me, one of the biggest challenges for the healthcare industry, because how will you deal with all these? I mean, we talked about Dr. Google just a while ago and the pressure that it might have had for physicians. And, they saw the cups, don't mistake my medical degree with your Google research. That was an easy one to counter. But with all the medical devices that are consumer tech today, and definitely within 5 to 10 years, that will be a whole lot more different to manage, because maybe even physicians or anybody in the healthcare system might not be fully aware of what is out there. And that will be a huge challenge.
That's really interesting. I think a lot about translational medicine, this whole idea of personal science, also being involved in actual science, clinical trials, et cetera. I heard a study that 1 out of every 2 people will do a clinical trial in their lifetime or something like that. And who knows how realistic that is, but it is really true. People want to be involved in their own science through their own data, through science actually happening, through decentralized clinical trials and others. But something that I think we really need to think about, obviously misinformation and health information technology toxicity is a problem. And so I think ChatGPT, social media, giving people information, misinformation and the reliability of information, it's a serious challenge that I think in medical school, doctors need to be trained to know how to deal with. Like, this is not going away. People are going to ChatGPT before they come into your office, and you have to know how to handle that, know how to deal with that. And I think, doctors keep pushing back. Oh, Dr. Google's bad, oh, Dr. ChatGPT and Dr. TikTok's bad. If anything, I think we really need to lean in and say, how can we improve these resources to people who just want to be an empowered health enthusiast? How do we help get these resources to the next level to help the patients? And all that said, from the patient advocacy side of things, I think the biggest challenge we're going to have to deal with in the next 5 to 10 years is patient safety and trust. Patient data privacy and security is a serious issue. Cybersecurity risks are at every corner. Your data is just everywhere, flying around. We have access to our data through information blocking rules and patient access, but is it safe? And I think organizations like the Light Collective, from the late and great, amazing Mighty Casey and others, they're taking a stand on this topic, but I think it's something that we would be remiss to not talk about today, because that's a serious issue. That's really going to be something in the next 5-10 years. It's going to become paramount.
Yeah. So I think a couple of things. One is on that point. It's a bit of a diversion. I'm involved in a group that's one of I think many that are going to be really having a go at, and the Light Collective is another, really having a go at sort of creating sort of essentially personal data networks and personal privacy networks. So I'm involved with a group called the EP3 Foundation, which I dive into, but it's in that world. But I think as that picks up, as AI does more and more activity in the background, people are going to want to navigate and protect their own information privacy and their own identity in a way that, across all spheres, not just healthcare, but across everything. Having said that, that's coming. What I'd love to hear a bit, perhaps from you, Christophe, on, both how you think current healthcare providers, traditional doctors, hospitals, and others are actually reacting, and who's doing well, and what the best responses are in terms of responding to these new kind of patients. And then who is going to come either out of left field, or who may be actually providing the kind of services, tests, services, whatever that we've discussed, who's got a big opportunity here, this new type of consumer. So I'd love to hear what you think about kind of the incumbents, and who you think who's got the best opportunity to really change the world here.
Okay, how much time do we have here to answer that question?
We probably have
we can have a whole discussion on that.
Well, we're online. We can go forever, right? It could be
I'll
podcast. 5 hours later, we're still going.
No, I'll try. I try to be brief. But I think, in my opinion, there's two major changes on the rise. Potentially, let's say that it's scenarios. Let's put it that way in the healthcare industry. One is the first line. And if you look at the first line, whether it's pharmacists, physicians, whether it's insurances, sick funds, as we have them also in Europe, they are trying to reinvent themselves. The first line, family practitioner, you might, if you're really critical and you're thinking about what could happen in the future, you could ask yourself, what will their role be? Because of the invasion of technology, their role will change massively. And they're trying, what you see, I work a lot with those kind of organizations, and they're very protective, and they don't really know what to do. They not really know what is coming, and so they're very protective. That's one thing. And I really think that one of the things that they could do is moving from a caregiver to a care guider. A care guider that is not only within the healthcare ecosystem, but also in the digital healthcare ecosystem. And which will be very challenging because they're not really trained. Definitely the oldest one is not really trained for that. And then the second line or the third line, if you look at hospitals, I think we might see a shift, and I think it's already happening a little bit in the States, but you might see a shift between the hospitals that are, I wouldn't say go to wellness per se, but go a little bit more, that put wellness at their front door and don't do the heavy lifting on the heavy diseases. And then you have the very specialized clinics. So that is a split that I think we will see. To your second part of your question, what are the other stakeholders that could play a role? I think because it's healthcare, and because if you want to have an impact on healthcare, really, a lot, let's say, or the most as possible, we're looking at anybody that services locations where people are a lot, or items that people use a lot. So I'm talking about the home, obviously. I'm talking about work. I'm talking about the car. One of my most popular blog posts is how the car industry is moving into health. Like every car brand is now focused on health and making people healthier and happier in their car. But we're also talking about, the clothing and glasses and watches and all the things that we have always dear and near to us, toilet seats, those kind of things. So I think everything that has a potential to be frequently around us, or where we are frequently around, supermarkets, those kind of places, I think those are the new entrants that will find a way, already finding ways to have an impact on health. I always talk about health and self-care because I try to avoid to make a distinction too much, because healthcare is, obviously there is a distinction, and let's not make a mistake here, but I think it will blend a little bit more, except for the very severe diseases. It will blend a lot more. It will come closer to each other. And that's where all these players, these new incumbents, technology players, supermarkets, car builders, home builders, fashion industry, gadgetry, glasses, you name it, earpods, they all will have some piece of a puzzle in gathering data and gathering insights and offering solutions.
And I'd like to add to this. I love everything you just said, and I totally agree with it, that the innovations that lean into understanding the diagnostic journey and understanding the patient story and the patient and care partner experience, they're going to be the winners at the end of the day, because folks just jumping into healthcare, not understanding what patients and care partners are truly going through and experiencing, and are just trying to lean into whatever they had with their own experience from a privileged standpoint. We need diversity of thought here. We need a chief patient health officer at every single organization that's looking to get into the health arena, because at the end of the day, these are the people who are boots on the ground experiencing healthcare, and they're the ones being guided. So they need to let you know what works best for them so that what you're developing will be successful.
So I actually have I think there's a theory, and I've talked a bit about this concept of the continuous clinic, and that is something that I'm wearing my WTF Health t-shirt. My friend Jessica Massa, and she's the one actually named it. I had a ridiculously long name. But really what I was talking about was an organization that would manage sort of all the different aspects of care, whether they be remote, whether they be AI, whether they be actually human beings touching a patient, and wherever the patient was. And I think you can extend that concept a little bit with what Christophe has talked about to sort of integrate what you just mentioned, Grace, which is that we have had a static, staccato point intervention healthcare system. The people who have had the most interactions with the healthcare system have the most data. We've struggled for the last 2 decades, but we seem to be winning the ability to get the data out of the healthcare system. What's in the EMR? Can I get it out? Can I spread it? Can I take action over it myself? This is the mighty Casey stuff. We're all obviously missing our dear friend because of that, but because of her recent death. But her being one of the most loud people saying, I want access to my data, I want it, I don't want to be able to give it to anybody, and I want to be able to use it myself. That's great, because you have a lot of access to that data. But that data was all being created by the healthcare system, right? By labs, by hospitals, by doctors, by whomever. Increase, and then there was the healthcare system has not been very good about finding linkages and finding interesting stuff, and now we're starting to see companies emerging that are looking for care gaps in the data and starting to figure out, did you miss a test, or are you on the wrong kind of drugs, and starting to use that data and analyze it and do stuff with it. And we're kind of starting to get to that point, but it's still really focused about the data that's created by the healthcare system. what Christophe is talking about is that now we've got the stuff in the car, in the home, on the wrist, tests in the bathroom. I call it the informated bathroom, whatever. I see you have your exercise bike back to your left, Christophe, getting your heartbeat off that or whatever. We're starting to create an entire data layer, which is based around the human, which is not connected to the healthcare system, right? And as that grows and grows and grows, we're going to have to apply the same things I just said. Is who is looking into that as and this is where I'm talking about AI and sort of the identity agents, who's looking into that data and trying to figure out what's going on. So I think a lot of the issues we've had with and obviously I don't want to talk about your case in particular, Grace, but when you have a misdiagnosis or a missed diagnosis, there was something going on in there that was not picked up. And I go back to Regina Holiday and her husband Fred Holiday, one of the great advocacy artists of our time, and many of us have Regina Holiday's walking gallery jacket. So I have a bunch of, that's a painting by her behind me, by the way. I have many in my office. If you go back to her husband, Fred, when he was sick with kidney cancer, he was like sort of reporting on a daily status on Facebook. If you go back and look at his Facebook post, you could extract from it that there was something going wrong. So I think when more and more of us are creating this sort of digital exhaust, there will be a role for someone to go, okay, you're not just, for most people, there's not much going on. But I mean, when there are indications that something's going bad, let's see if we can pick stuff up earlier. And you're seeing a number of experiments in this. There are a couple of companies I run into who are looking at, sleep patterns and heart rhythm patterns using detectors and sensors in the bed to try to figure out, does that impact, people? Can you tell if COVID is coming early? Can you tell if other conditions are coming? We're at the very early stages of that. Right now, the healthcare system doesn't believe much in that stuff, and it's only wanting to get its test when you're in their facility. But I think, Christophe's talking about 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future. Start pushing it forward. We will have a lot more information. And what we know from other businesses that create huge amounts of information is that they create secondary analytic players who spend a lot of time mining that information and finding useful stuff. Now, you see it first in things like, online advertising and stuff that perhaps isn't as important. But I think it will be coming in healthcare. And at that point, whether it's, continuous clinic or some other moniker, there'll be some organization which will be looking after patients. And this is an area when you talk about sickness funds, insurance companies, medical groups, hospitals reinventing themselves, that kind of tracking, whether they do it in conjunction with new types of companies or by themselves, and getting clinical evidence and getting to conditions earlier. I mean, that's super important. And yes, you have to bring a lot of stuff into this: exercise, food, living environment, social determinants of health, family environment. We talk a lot about loneliness and communication and housing and basic social determinants of health. Yes, we have huge problems. There are people in many countries, the US in particular, where there's real problems with insecure housing and people living on the street and what have you. But I think that, to me, is the vision that we should be trying to push, and what I'm getting out of listening to you two. On that point, and connected to that, let me ask about we think the public health view of this, because I mean, some of the stuff we talked about, that sounds good and sounds like rich people in nice houses can afford, people with nice, this comes into the BMW and the Tesla first, but the person who's on the bus, may not be getting the stuff in their car. What do you think about ways that both the activism can advocate and we're likely to see this kind of policy change get across the whole society? Either one, feel free to pick it up.
I'll take it. I'll be rather brief because I'm in my line of work. I don't often intervene with public health, or I'm not too much interested with how governmental institutions go about it. My point of view here is that public health or governmental institution, they need to take care of regulation and control. That is one thing, just to make sure that everything's safe. It's the same thing with AI that we see right now. The second thing is that they need to make sure that we de-risk innovation. I think we need to make sure that the innovation that should be happening in health is de-risked. We saw that with the COVID vaccine. They took the risk away and it went way faster. I think they have a role to play in there. Maybe they should be putting some basic infrastructure out to making it work, like they do in China, for example. That's what Chinese are super good at. They put the structure out very fast so that the solutions can come to market pretty easily. And then, of course, they have a role to play in safeguarding the social aspect. But in that regard, I always try to say, like, let's not try to find a solution that meets 100% of the people. I think innovation should bring solutions to 13%, and then 37%, and then 50%, and then 70, 80% maybe. And then it's the public health responsibility to close that gap, the last 20%. I think that is how I look at public health. And because I'm very much in innovation and fasting, like going really fast with innovation, I'm not too much involved with that. I just hope that they really can, make the risk linked to innovation and health lower, that they put a basic infrastructure out, and that when we only get to 80%, that they can close the gap with the basic stuff that maybe the rest of the population needs, and that the health equity is back in control, let's say.
Absolutely, Christophe. And I'd love to add to that. I do a lot of public health communications work in my day-to-day. And health activism can really leverage technology to, raise awareness about public health issues that are tailored to target audiences using data and analytics. You can mobilize support for policy changes that can be really impactful. Kind of create networks of individuals dedicated to specific health challenges that we then disseminate information about on a broad range of spots. But really, I think by working together, healthcare technology, health activism, they can really help amplify each other's impact and drive meaningful change in public health through using kind of data and analytics to inform more reliably shared information.
All right. Well, Grace, you answered my last question already, which was, what should we be doing to work together? So let me ask a final one. Next 5, 7, 10 years, what main technology innovation do you think is going to be spread and have the biggest impact around this whole concept of health consumerism, healthusiasm, health activism? What do you think is really going to change the game? So I want to start with you, Christophe, and then we'll answer around.
I think it will be emotive AI, affective AI, emotion AI. I don't know what you call it. So right now we're dealing with generative AI, which offers an abundance of intelligence, an overabundance of creativity. It makes basically just like Instagram was allowed people to become every person to become a photographer, a good photographer. I think right now what we've seen with generative AI, the ChatGPT of these worlds, the Midjourneys of these worlds, it allows everybody to become creative. It takes a while to get to the prompts, but it allows us to become creative. That said, 5 years ago, we were still saying that creativity will save humanity from the doom of AI. And right now we're facing in generative AI models that really just take away almost our own proper creativity. And I think the same will happen in the next 3, 5, 7 years with emotions. I think we are at the verge of creating AI models that can replicate, that can process emotions. And to me, that will be a game changer for the good and the bad. I mean, there's quite some negative things that we need to be thinking of here. But it will allow a huge opportunity, or it will allow basically digital health to grow more than ever. It will allow digital health to be scaled because empathy, let's say, is very scarce. It's very hard to get some empathy or some emotion within the healthcare system. And when digital health solutions will have the inclusion of emotional AI, emotive AI, affective AI, whatever you may call them, I think that will be the how would you call it? The engine, the start, the explosion of digital health in the next couple of years. So if you ask my guess, that would be it.
Grace, your prediction.
I also agree. Generative AI is going to be a huge splash, but I'm going to be a little controversial and say social media. It's not going away. And if anything, I think it's going to have more impact on healthusiasm, health activism moving forward than it ever had before. I think, it's going to be used to help conduct user research, involve patients, care partners, advocacy group, and development. And in that side of the thing, it's going to be used to kind of foster collaboration, dialogue with different stakeholders, going to be used to spread health information. I mean, I think I don't think we should sleep on social media and how it's going to impact this side of the game. And I'm excited to see kind of where it goes from here. And I'm hoping that we can find some type of way to just help kind of prioritize patient-centered care and empowerment through the use of social media down the road in improving your own healthcare.
Excellent point. My point, I think, would be that I think the next sort of 5, 7, 8, 10 years, we are going to see a real revolution in home-based testing and non-physician, non-clinical based testing, and the regularity of that coming from the data, but including clinical stuff like stuff you breathe in, things you breathe into, tracking your sleep, all that stuff is going to become much more built into the fabric of our society. I know we've been looking at this for a while. It's going to start happening, and that's going to really change how people think about their day-to-day health and impact, the programs they're in, and make us all, health consumers, and make us all healthusiasts, I guess is the word.
Yeah, and that's exactly personal science, as we mentioned earlier.
Absolutely, all of that. All right, well, I think we've done a wrap. So this was our panel on the Converge to Accelerate AI in tech and telehealth and medicine. I'm Matthew Holt. I want to thank my guests, Christophe Jauquet and Grace Finton. Thanks for listening to us, and look forward to the rest of the conference.